Good evening. Welcome to my presentation about Nintendo, the video game industry, and subscription models at large. This is going to be regarding our first Fishbowl assignment of the 2025 semester. Within this presentation, I'm going to be discussing two specific articles, an academic article and a press article. The academic article is titled Why Subscription Models Face an Uphill Battle, and will be revolving mostly around the cons of the subscription model industry. And the press article will be focusing more on the pros of the subscription model industry, although I will be pulling a little bit of the cons as well. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to be looping it into Nintendo as a company at large. So let's define what a subscription model exactly is. A subscription model is defined as any method of spending a monthly to yearly cost to play a curated list of games provided by a provider of choice. So there's a laundry list of providers. Xbox, for example, with the photo listed here, with their Xbox Game Pass. Sony has PlayStation Plus, and Nintendo, like we're stating here in the presentation, they have their yearly subscription that's provided as well. Also, publishers and developers have subscription models too. So you have companies like EA with EA Play, Ubisoft Connect, and also Steam has their Valve games listed there too. And it allows consumers an easier way to play games without paying a full upfront cost to purchase individual games, which we'll be going further into detail within this presentation. So, citing our first academic article, The Netflix of Gaming, Why Subscription Video Game Services Face an Uphill Battle, the article in question analyzed subscription challenges in gaming, which we'll be going into a further deep dive within our following slides. But to summarize, basically, you have a lack of ownership with subscriptions in gaming. You have a temporary license for the most part. Games are curated in a specific list, so it overwhelms players. And also, due to the fact that games are only there for 3 months at a time, it forces gamers to invest time in a way that they can't allocate enough time to actually play those games and enjoy those games in the first place. High content acquisition and development costs. So there are servers involved to store all of this data for all these people and gamers to basically access in the first place. There's licensing fees to host these games on these services that they have to pay developers and pay publishers to access, or access these games to host. There's a lot of financial factors that go into hosting these games on these services. Games have long engagement times versus shows and movies, so it's easy to put a movie on Netflix that's only 2.5 hours to 3 hours, but if we're hosting games on a subscription-based service, you're looking at a 30 to 60 to 80 hour investment with a 3-month at a time frame to fully play this game out. And it's tough to maintain value and retain users long term, because a lot of gaming is revolved around curating a list of games that you prefer for yourself. So, as we progress through this presentation, what are some ways that we can fix the subscription model to retain players and make sure that they have a good time playing these games on these subscriptions? So the pros of a subscription model is cost saving. Moving to a singular monthly fee opens up access to multiple titles for players. Like I stated a little bit earlier, games come with an upfront cost of $70, $80, sometimes $90. Spending only $12 a month to $20 a month, or the yearly alternative, which is about $120 to $150 a year, allows players to play 250 plus games that they might not have the budget to play in the past. There's a convenience factor as well. It lowers overall cost of games and provides a digital library to remove the need of storing physical media, and gives the player instant access to a large library of games. Again, ties into what I was stating about cost savings. It lowers the cost, plus it allows players to actually, allocate space in their house for other things as opposed to storing physical media in their homes. And it gives them instant access to games they might not have played in the past. Stuff that's suggested to them. They might be into shooters, or platformers, but hey, here's some racing titles that you might not have played, or some indie titles that you might not have played. And there's a big variety for these games as well. It allows players to access games that they would have never thought of playing, while also suggesting titles to players based on their preferences. So like I was stating a little bit earlier, if you're interested in flying games or driving games, you can go ahead and play these platformers. Also, hey, you've been playing a lot of Call of Duty, well, here's some Battlefield that you can play. Or hey, you've been playing a lot of Banjo-Kazooie, well, here's Ukulele, you can go ahead and play that. It kind of mixes it up for the player, and it keeps them engaged within their subscription. Cons of a subscription model. So this ties into more of our initial article that we were discussing. There's no real ownership of these games. So again, discussing the temporary license issue. You're purchasing a monthly license to play a curated list of games. When you end the subscription, all ownership of these games ends outside of the save files that you may have. You just have a temporary license for them. The rotation of the games is both a good and a bad thing. So yes, there's fresh titles, but because games are rotated on a quarterly basis to keep the subscription fresh, you run the risk of removing games that players are in the process of playing. Also, in turn, rushing people to play these games as fast as humanly possible in the risk of it being removed from the subscription. And an overload of content. So keep in mind, when we were, or in my case, when I was younger, you would go to Blockbuster or Movie Land, and you could actually peruse physical media and read about the game or read about the movie or what have you, and you weren't necessarily overwhelmed. You were able to just pull them off the shelf and give your whole entire focus on it. That's not the case with streaming services. You're barraged with information, barraged with photos and blurbs and reviews and what have you, and it can overwhelm the player and overwhelm the consumer at large. So how exactly does this directly relate to Nintendo? If you see here, Nintendo Online does offer a subscription service. And their subscription service is a little bit bare bones and stripped down from what Xbox or Sony may provide. But they do give options to the player to utilize their subscription service. So their subscription service is cheaper than the standard, $120, $130 a year, and Nintendo's is about $20 or so. You have a 7-day free trial to try it out. It gives you options for online play, so you can go ahead and play online with your friends. Save data cloud, so you can save your storage and share it amongst all your devices. There's a smartphone app as well, so you can communicate with your friends list and see new, deals that might be coming in and out in the Nintendo ecosphere. And there's special offers that could be related to coupons or free games or rotational games that might last a couple of weeks or so. But the big draw with Nintendo Online and their subscription service is right there. The NES, Super NES, Game Boy, and Nintendo Switch Online factor. You go ahead and you have a rotational list of retro games that you can play at any point for over a year. That also includes N64 as well. So, regarding the strategic implications for Nintendo specifically with these streaming services, Nintendo should expand carefully and attempt to avoid a full Netflix-style model. This kind of ties into the cons that we were talking about previously, where you can easily overwhelm the consumer with too many choices, include a limited license that would limit the consumer from being able to have full ownership of these games, and also rotate games too quickly, so it forces these consumers to play the games too quickly. They should also consider a micro-subscription bundle, Mario only tiered to subscribers, which maybe limit the retro games to its own model, which is only about $5 a month, or only online play, which is only $10 a month or so, to subscribers so that they can basically a la carte their way through the subscription model that Nintendo might provide. Finally, they should focus on loyalty, fair pricing, and unique content value. So, Nintendo is a very, very strong brand, and there are very, very loyal players and gamers who kind of drift their way to that brand. If they can go ahead and continue the fair pricing that they currently have at $20 and focus on the loyalty of these players, they can go ahead and use the value of that to provide more within the Switch Online service. Final thoughts. So Nintendo, while already establishing a current great subscription model should expand to a certain extent to fulfill more of a broader subscription model with some of their more recent games, as opposed to just providing their backlog as a subscription model. But still, it is the cheapest on the market. I find that subscription models are benefiting gaming with all the data that I acquire from both articles, even looking at both of the pros and the cons. And I appreciate you sitting down and watching my presentation with me. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me with my phone number that's listed in the Google Doc, and have a great night. Thank you so much.